All right, my friends, I am really, really excited to bring Shawn White, the intentional carnivore, for our podcast on carnivore conversations. And Shawn is just amazing. Now, Shawn started carnivore on April 17th, 2022. And since that time, he has lost 269 pounds, and he may share something more, or plus or minus, but amazing. Reverse type 2 diabetes, non-alcoholic fatty liver disease gone, eliminated gout and the medications for it. He is off his 3 hypertensive medications he was on, and no longer does he have sleep apnea. But the absolute best non-scale victory, Bella Ma, thank you so much, SBG, is that depression is gone, which is debilitating. And I know that because I've suffered from depression for many years. This journey has restored more than just health, as it has also instilled greater faith and strength for him, his marriage, and been a better father to his children. And his mission now is to help get this message and the possibilities of it to the world. Shawn White, I'm so grateful you're here. Would you please start off by telling us a little bit about yourself and where you're from?
Well, thank you for having me. I appreciate it. It's an honor for me to be here with you. I love hanging out with you and spending time with you. And so yeah, I'm from a little town that nobody's probably heard of, right outside of Greenville, South Carolina, right in the back of the woods. Most people that hear me speak can tell that. But yeah, so you covered a lot of it. April the 17th. 2022 basically changed my life, but I have a whole history before that. I was a paramedic. I worked EMS for about 12 years. There's a litany of things that I've done, a litany of failures, that I have put in my pocket and carry along the way. So I'm enjoying the fact that, now that I could talk a lot about the successes and things that I've been able to accomplish, but there's a lot of stuff before that. But, it's very, very much exciting to be able to do that. And I'm just a normal guy. Honestly, I still work a day job. I still get up and work, write trauma reports for the hospital these days. So that's basically, who I am. I'm a husband, I'm a father, I'm a son. I've been married for 21 years, July the 20th of this year.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Awesome.
Thank you. And it's been amazing.
Well, maybe you could start off and tell us a little bit about the things that you suffered from, and what was it like? How was it emotionally? How was it physically? In all ways that we can understand a little bit about the personal side of Shawn White.
Mm-hmm. Oh, absolutely. Yeah. And so I like to speak about the depression. I don't like to speak about it, but I like to share that with people because I feel like it shows my weakness, but at the same time, it shows all those people who are still suffering from that there's hope and there's a possibility to get out of it. So I will talk about that for sure. I was 457 pounds whenever I started this journey that I know of. I could have been, heavier than that. And it was horrible. I was diagnosed with type 2 diabetes. It was horrible. I, had non-alcoholic fatty liver disease. It's horrible. I had sleep apnea. I had to wear that Darth Vader mask on my face, every night, laying there beside my wife or on the couch, which is where I ended up sleeping because I didn't want to keep her up. All those things were horrible. Taking those medications and forking out that money and going to see the doc to get the refills every month. It was horrible. All those things were horrible, but that depression, it was so debilitating. It was demoralizing. You realize that there's something isn't right. You just don't know how to do anything about it. And so that's a lot of where I was at. I couldn't take a shower without sitting on the side of the tub. I was 39 years old. I could not stand long enough to bathe myself without having to take a seat. The steam that, you love when you jump in the shower these days. Yeah, that would just about suffocate me. I'd get lightheaded. I would feel like I was going to fall over in the shower, and I couldn't walk. I would, like I said, overweight, 457 pounds. Whenever I had walked from the couch to the bathroom is about the distance that I would walk before starting carnivore, before starting walking, before having any energy or anything like that. for over 3 years.
Wow. A question. What do you think were the things that led up to all of these problems that you may have been exposed to, or the habits, or the things that may have caused the the obesity and the all the other diseases that went along with it?
I think it was a many years of bad decisions accumulating and adding up and coming to a head during that time period. Honestly, I kind of think of it, and I don't know that I've ever tried to describe what how it came about, but like I feel like it was a perfect storm because 2019 is whenever I lost my job as in EMS after about 12 years. Ergo, when did COVID start? So you got that in the social setting. You've got my health that was in the dumpster. I wasn't even 457 pounds at that time. I was over 400 pounds, but I was overweight. My blood pressure, I was already on the medication. I was already on the gout, all the problems. I had not been diagnosed with type 2 diabetes yet. I think that's about the only problem that I didn't diagnosably on my file have at that time. And so bad decisions, along with the social stuff that was going on with COVID, along with, losing my job, everything just together, I feel like created a perfect storm and hit me all at one time.
When were you diagnosed with the type 2 diabetes?
I was diagnosed in 2020 with type 2 diabetes. So about a year after I lost my job.
I mean, one is you've been in EMS for a long time. You've been married for years and a family. So there's a human being there that I know is a dedicated human being, hardworking. I'm just wondering because we're talking about carnivore and nutrition, and ultimately you didn't make it happen on your own. Something in our diet, I believe, is the single factor that gets us where we're at, that causes our troubles, because we're taught something from the day we're born to eat things that are not natural for the human body. Would you say that is true and for you?
Absolutely. I think you're absolutely right. I think from an early age, we're taught to feel desires inside of ourself with things that we were never intended to have. And so by the time we're old enough to realize that we're not supposed to have them, we're already addicted and subjugated to them, and I think that's a lot of it. So yeah, absolutely. I think it's multifaceted as well, though. Like, how did I stick to it? How did I continue with carnivore? How did that happen for me? Like it provided and produced for me something that I got in nothing else. It produced contentment as far as nutrition wise. I found out very quickly after I started eating that fat and that protein on a consistent basis and not adding, it's not just that I ate the fat and the protein, it's that I did not eat the other things. It was both together, I feel like. And the fat and the protein satiated me to a point that I was full. And when you're full, do you want more? Of course not, And so it gave me a contentment with my diet. And that initially I ate enough and ate to satiation, and it gave me that contentment and it pushed me forward until I could start seeing some of the results down the road that gave me the inspiration and the momentum to hold on and to want to do it more. So then it was adding up.
So what was the moment that you said, okay, enough? And or what was the inspiration that gave you the shining light that you wanted to move towards?
You mean getting started with it, or starting?
You were suffering for so long, you didn't just think, carnivore, I'm going to do that. Something came into your environment that said, that looks interesting. And what and who was the inspiration that got you to make the changes?
That's an interesting little tidbit there. I would lay on the couch and listen to the Joe Rogan podcast.
Yeah.
Who doesn't love listening to Joe Rogan?
So
I don't
well.
agree with the man on everything, but listen, the guy is straightforward. He's when he does those interviews and things, he asks questions that nobody's asking. He lets people speak. I like that, and I agree with him on some things and I disagree with him on some things, but overall, I think he's great at what he does. So I would listen to Joe. It was interesting to me. And one day he had Rhonda Patrick on there discussing the carnivore diet, who's obviously not for the carnivore diet, but their discussion kind of got me to thinking about it. And I was in a place of hopelessness and depression. I was honestly at a point in my life I did not want to see tomorrow. That's the point I was at. I was as far depressed as I've ever been or could imagine anybody being. And so I was grasping for whatever I could find to continue to be here for my children, to be here for my wife, to get out of the hole that I had found myself in. After listening to that interview with Joe and Rhonda, it just got me to thinking. And one day I was like, I cannot continue to live like this. Either I'm going to find a way out of this or I'm done. I'm checking out. Honestly, that's just the point I was at.
Wow.
And, and it's not because I'm not a man of faith. I'm a man of faith. I make that very public on my channel. I believe in God. I trust in him. And I did even at that time, which is whole nother issue when it comes to how I ended up where I was at. But at the same time, and I would talk to God, why in the world are you doing this to me? Or why is this happening to me? And all these things. And, sometimes I think knowing why doesn't help, but nevertheless, that's a different story for another day, I guess. I believe.
Can I comment? I'm just going to throw in this one show because he loves you.
Yes.
Everything is because he loves you. But keep going. We're going to have another conversation about that, and maybe we'll add a little bit too.
All right, that's cool too. I agree 100%. So I heard that interview. I heard what they were discussing. It wasn't necessarily the same thing that what I would hear later on. I stumbled out of that interview and kicked the idea around. I would talk to God. Like I said, I prayed, God, you got to get me out of this hole because I cannot do it myself. And not too long later, maybe the next day or even that day, I don't know what day it was away from it, I stumbled across this crazy doctor. He was insane. His name's Dr. Ken Berry. You know this guy? And he kind of
sounds like you, by the way.
Yeah, he sounds a lot like me, which kind of helped me relate,
Right on.
So the common sense country boy. That's what he says. But nevertheless, I listened to him like, this guy's got to know better. He's been a doctor for 20 something years. He was in the ER. He's no dummy, but what he's saying, there's no way that works like that. Mm-hmm. But I'm going to listen to him because I know enough about the body from working in the healthcare field for a while that the things that he's saying that I do know makes sense to me. So the stuff that he's saying that I don't know is worth listening to because the other stuff does make sense. So let's try this thing. And he's not trying to sell me anything. He's not trying to get me to get involved with this $10,000 a night program, buy these little packets of food and have them shipped to he's not trying to do all that. He's just saying, listen, if you will try this thing called beef, butter, bacon, and eggs for 30 to 90 days, it's gonna drastically, it's elimination diet. It's gonna change your being. Like, dude, that sounds amazing. If I could eat beef, butter, bacon, and eggs for 90 days and lose weight, get out of here. And then I stumbled into a community on Facebook because he made a big deal about community. Yeah. You need to get involved. You can't be isolated, which is also why I do the same now. Isolation is so hurtful to us. We're not meant to do life alone. I stumbled into that community and found some support. I found some tips. I found some friends. I found some accountability. I found people that I hang out with, people that I consider family even today that have seen my journey from the get-go. that's the people that I found in those communities. Not everybody, obviously you're going to have your bad apples, but the majority of people, you know, are amazing. And that's what I found. And that's how it kind of got kicked off and how it got going.
And so you focused on what in your diet and anything else that you focused on that helped you on this path.
Obviously the God, you know, the further I go along this journey, the more dedicated and more renewed my faith and my relationship. I call it a relationship, not a religion. But the more that is strengthened. But as far as the diet, when I started off eating carnivore, I tried a month of it in October before I went full-fledged in April. I did it for 30 days. Let's try this thing out. It was absolutely, you know, I still had the sauces. I still had, you know, a lot of the stuff that contained ingredients that I just weren't aware at the time. I didn't understand that. I got to look at all the sugar that's in this barbecue sauce that's why I love this stuff. Right.
Right.
However, it was so drastically different from what I was used to having and the way that I was used to doing business that I felt amazing. And I was like, I have got to do this. I don't know if I can do it starting before Thanksgiving because, you know, I'm still addicted to these foods, right? I'm going to my brother's. I'm going to have the turkey and the dressing and all the things. And then Christmas, then my birthday and New Year's and all those things. Nevertheless, I kicked that can down the road and then I kept saying, tomorrow I'm going to get started because I felt amazing on that. That was cool. And tomorrow and next week and next month, nevertheless, I kicked that can down the road a good ways. And then finally, April the 17th of 2022 was the day that I started carnivore and grabbed a hold of it and never let go and still have it. But I changed whenever I finally in April, I was like, I got to do this and I've got to do it right. I would eat 3 times a day. I would eat nothing but animal products as it's, you know, related. If it had a mama in a face, you can have it. If it doesn't, you can't have it. You know, I cut out the sauces. I started drinking water. That was basically, at that time, it was eat till satiation, eat as much as you can eat. Don't try to cut and limit and control your portions, get the nutrients that you've been lacking for so long and get satiated.
And get away from the poisons of plants. And add the fat. And so what were the first things that you noticed and how long did it take to get the first benefits?
Oh man, the first thing I probably noticed was a couple of weeks in the transition period. I got to almost to where I just didn't want to see the food. I kind of was like, man, if I see another steak, I am going to absolutely lose it. Who doesn't love steak? But you get to that food aversion, I believe, because you're eating it so much and you don't have the variety that you think you need. And so not that it's wrong to not enjoy your food. Enjoy your food. That's fine. It's fuel. But the first thing I noticed was that food aversion and I just didn't want it anymore. I didn't really see anything crazy noticeable other than being satiated, being full until probably about I went beef, butter, bacon, and eggs only in June for a challenge in the group. They would do challenges in Carnivore Quest every month and still do. And they were challenging everybody to do the beef, butter, bacon, and eggs. And I'm like, man, I can do anything for 30 days. I don't know if I can do this, but I'm going to give it a go, you know? And that's what I eat. That is what I eat now. But about a month after I started after I started beef, butter, bacon, and eggs, I noticed that my energy level was through the roof now, like I said, you're talking about a guy who spent 3 years literally laying on a couch. He would sleep all night, get up and take a nap. I had no energy, but when I got to that point on this journey, I had to do something with the energy. I couldn't just sit still. The problem was I was 450, however many pounds, and I couldn't walk. So I started walking from the couch to the back bedroom of my house, touching the door and walking back to the couch, back and forth down the hallway, that kind of thing. And then one day there's a church not far from my house. It's probably I don't know, a quarter of a mile to the front doors of it. And I used to walk, years ago, I used to walk over there. And nevertheless, I told my wife, I said, I'm going to walk over there and touch the door on that church, which is kind of funny because I can't walk to the bathroom without being out of breath. Right. And not just that, if I stood for longer than about 30 seconds, I would start going numb about my sciatic area. If I didn't sit down when it started going numb, I would fall over, so,
Wow.
So finally I told my wife, listen, I've got so much energy. I got to do something with this. Just sitting around and walking around in the house ain't gonna cut it. And the next day I walked over there and took a picture and I sent it to her touching the door of that church. And I never slowed down. After I walked over there and touched the church door and came back, I said, tomorrow I'm gonna walk over there and touch that church door twice. And I did it twice. And I did that for a little bit. And then there's about 3/4 of a mile to a stop sign at the end of the road I live on. And after I did the church thing, I said, I'm going to walk that stop sign. And it got to where I was I would always try to up next week what I did this week. And it became like a challenge. I was challenging myself to do one more step.
Mm-hmm. So my suspicion is that our energy is drained on a plant-based lean meat diet, and you're suffering from all these diseases and diminished energy, which I felt in depression before and all the similar diseases as you. I didn't know that I had fatty liver, but I had bowel bleeding, arthritis, psoriasis, kidney stones, migraines, and the brain fog and a little bit of sort of anxiety that I suffered from. And going carnivore, like that was the thing. I tried paleo, keto, and they didn't do a thing. Tell me a little bit about as you began to see the changes. Where was your mind going in this, and what was your motivation to get to the next level?
Man, it was extremely exhilarating. It was phenomenal to me because, like I said, I'd spent that 3 years so dark, so deep, so depressed, and I did not even realize until a couple of months in, like, you have not thought about leaving Earth for a while.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? I don't know how that makes sense, to somebody who hasn't been there, but whenever you despair of life and you spend a long time there, you're isolated, you don't get out, you don't talk with people, you barely talk to your family. And when you do, you're so isolated that you start believing things that aren't really even being said. You read things into situations that's not even there, if that,
Brain
and,
dysfunction. I call it brain sickness, essentially. You're not thinking straight because your brain is damaged. And it's the same damage that happens to every other organ of your body. And so that is it. But keep going. I'm really inspired by your story.
Absolutely. Yeah. And so once I got started, once I got down the road just a little bit, I started realizing what was happening and how I felt. Not that I didn't have a plan. I was just trying to stick to the process. If it was going to work, I was going to give it what I had because I was tired, literally tired. I was ready to give it all, one way or the other. Either way, if this didn't work, the other way was going to work. One thing was I wasn't going to stay like I was, no matter which way it was. Fortunately, it worked exactly as it was intended to work, exactly like our bodies are intended to have it. When I started giving myself that nutrition, it just took me a while to realize it. And once I realized it, it was on then because I was like, man, I feel good. I'm starting to get that energy back. My mind is starting to be strengthened. I can get out of this. I've lost a little bit of weight. I haven't had those horrible, crazy thoughts. I'm starting to sleep better. Man, a good night's sleep will change your being by itself just about, I slept all the time, but I didn't get good sleep, if that, and there's a big difference between laying down and closing your eyes and getting good sleep.
Were you still using the apnea equipment to help you breathe?
I was. The sleep apnea machine, absolutely.
Yep.
It tapered for a long time through the journey, and I have not slept with it quite a few times now. Sometimes I got so bad in the habit of putting it on my face that, like, now even like I'll put it on my face because, you know, going to bed because like became like a habit. But I went to my brother's for the 4th and didn't even take it with me. And I was like, I'm not turning around to go get that thing. You know, I don't need it. I don't stop breathing anymore. It was just a habit, you know? But I don't need it anymore.
Wow. Wow. So tell us a little bit about the inspiration that moved you to share your story and motivate and help others.
Well, like I said, whenever I found my way into that carnivore group, Carnivore Quest community, I became the first moderator in that group. It was probably about 200 or 300 people at the time, and now it's about 5,000. But whenever I started feeling so good, when I started walking, when I started eating correctly, when I started realizing all these things, I said, you know, I'm not working right now. I hadn't had a job at that time. And I said, I even made the post in the group. I'm going to start encouraging people, whether you deserve it or not, whether you ask for it or not. I told them, I said, you people are going to get so sick of me because I'm going to encourage people because that's where my heart was at. I felt so good coming out of that depression, coming out of that hopelessness, and finding the desire and drive to continue to press forward with something. And that's exactly what I did. So as far as the YouTube and all that stuff, now I really never planned on starting a YouTube channel. It was never my goal to do these things and start a YouTube channel. I just, for so long, and me and Larry Berquist from Carnivore Quest talked about this for almost a year. He's like, man, you know, I don't want to pressure you to do it. He's like, this got to be something that you feel like, you know, you want to do. And I tried it a couple of times. I made a video of me walking the very first time and put it in the group for the challenge. And that's the first thing I put on my channel back last September. But it was never let me start a YouTube thing. I was always in the group trying to talk to people, trying to give people, hey, I found this. This works for me. This might work for you. This, you know, try this or whatever. Just trying to help people get what I learned. And then the weight really started dropping. And I was like, man, this is insane. You know, yes, I'm strict. Yes, I'm, you know, doing those things. But when I started seeing that and others started noticing it too, they're like, well, what are you doing? And they would ask me, and I would spend a lot of time telling them. And so, long story short, the inspiration for me doing it was I felt like it's my responsibility to not hoard the information that I have, to not hoard the possibilities that are open for not just me, because I don't feel like that I'm special. I don't feel like that it's something that's primarily just for me. I don't think that the knowledge is. I don't think the experience is. There's other people that can experience it too. And just giving somebody just a little bit of hope that don't get off the couch, that don't do Facebook, that don't do this or that, if you can reach those people and just say, look, you may not have any will right now to go on. You may not have any motivation to continue on, but you can, and you don't have to stay that way. And I feel like I've been there. I've lived that. I've experienced it. And what kind of person would I be if I didn't share what I have found and try to get that out to the world? And I get to do it with a lot of other people who are a lot more talented than I am, but that doesn't negate the responsibility that I have to share the experience that I've got to experience.
Helping others is our real goal in life, and giving to others. A little question about your church. How have other people in the community come up to you and sort of been similar in the questions, the comments, and the stories?
Yeah, as far as the church thing, yeah, a lot of people that are that know me from before, you know, before all this stuff and before the YouTube and before even the carnivore, I have had people call me that I have not talked to in years, that have noticed and been like, what in the world are you doing? Like, you have to tell me about this. Like, you got to explain it to me. They want to know, you know, how, because they saw the 400 and something pound guy who was miserable, who was negative, who was always finding the worst in things, who was in the paramedic mindset to always look for the problem and, you know, whatever. And so I've had people contact me like that. There've been a handful that just don't understand what it's about and they think it's weird, and that's fine too, you know. I'd be glad to explain it to them too. But overall, it's been nothing but love and support, because it's hard to argue with my experience. You know, it's hard to argue when somebody's got receipts. You know, I've got the blood work, I've got the results, I've got all these things. And, you know, we can talk about it and I love sharing it. But overall, you know, yeah, there's been a little negative, but overall overwhelming support for the most part.
Dr. Rob Kiltz, another beautiful, spectacular day. And I just want to send thanks to all of those for watching the newest episode of Carnivore Conversations. Be sure to follow us on Spotify, Apple Music, and other streaming platforms to gain access to the full 1-hour episode. And don't forget to like and subscribe for more to come. God bless.